With all the things going on in the world right now, it's easy sometimes to forget that there are ongoing issues in our country and around the world that need to be addressed on a daily basis. Well, there's a great organization out there, and you've probably seen their trucks on the road. I know I have. It's an organization called Convoy of Hope, and I have the president of Convoy of Hope with me on Skype right now, and so we're going to educate you a little bit as to what's going on with them, kind of what they do, how they started, how you can get involved. And so, man, if you're a person, Christian, who likes to help other people, this is a conversation for you, because that's what Convoy of Hope does. And Hal Donaldson, president of Convoy of Hope, how are you doing out there today?
I'm great, Randy. Thank you so much for inviting me on today.
Well,
Good to be with you.
I sure appreciate your time, and we sure appreciate what you do. For people that may not know what Convoy of Hope is, let's give them a little bit of a basic primer so they can understand all that you guys do every day, regardless of what's going on in the world. You guys are out there doing the good deeds. So tell them what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we work through churches, and we'll partner with them to respond to disasters anywhere across the United States and around the world. We're also actively involved in doing community outreach, where we'll bring together 100 churches of different denominations to touch their city in a weekend, and we'll provide free groceries, free medical and dental care, job fairs, free shoes for kids, free haircuts, a full menu of services. And then internationally, we have three prongs. One is that we have a children's feeding initiative, where we're feeding 300,000 children a day. We feed them in schools, because by feeding them in schools, it keeps the kids in school. Parents will keep their children in school. Otherwise, they'll have them out on street corners begging or scavenging for food. We also work with thousands of farmers every year, helping them increase their yields. And we take the mothers of these children that we're feeding, and we put them through a business training initiative, and we help them start their own businesses. We do that for thousands of mothers every year, and so that they can feed their own children.
That's amazing. And you know what I appreciate? I understand, because in our mission feeding program, we do a lot of the same things you do in different areas, obviously. But we feed in the schools as well for that same, exactly what you're talking about. You get them into the schools, you get the education, you give them a future beyond just the meal you give them that day. But also what you guys are very involved in, that we do some, but that is a more holistic approach. It's development. Tell people why that part is so important, the jobs training and things like that.
It really is, because the goal should be that we want to break the cycle of poverty. We don't want to sustain it, we want to break it. And that happens by giving people the ability to grow their own food, to have regular employment. It also means connecting them to local churches, which is a big thing for us, because Convoy of Hope can provide the physical side, but you also need someone that's going to disciple them and provide the spiritual needs as well. So we partner with churches all over the world and across the U.S. to do that.
And I don't want to I don't want to badmouth anybody here, but when I see organizations that are doing a lot of the similar things that we do, that you guys do, I applaud the good work they do, but I just wouldn't support an agency that wasn't a Christian organization because of that very element right there. I do believe we have to have the spiritual. I know that's important to you guys. I don't know quite how to say that. How do you guys say it to emphasize that the spiritual has to be a part of it?
For us, it's one of our core values, because we believe that we've been called to emulate Jesus, to meet both physical and spiritual needs. And we can feed people's stomachs, but if we're not feeding their souls, then we want them to spend eternity in heaven. And so that's a critical piece of it. And I think the Lord has used ministries like yours and Convoy of Hope really to change the hearts, bend the hearts of churches to helping the poor and the suffering. And I think that's a really important component, helping churches understand what they can do if given the training and given the resources.
On the flip side, I don't know if you get the criticism we get, but some people actually do criticize us for the feeding or the water wells because they say we just need to save their souls. And we're like, a hungry child can't really hear the gospel because they're starving. So
That's right.
it does work both ways. What's your view on why you have to have the physical side of things?
Well, again, what's the model? The model is Jesus.
Mm,
What did he do? He did both. I don't think one is exclusive of the other. It's
yeah.
both and. And for us, we've seen it grow rapidly because we've seen God bless it. I believe one of the reasons He's blessing it is because we are addressing the spiritual needs of hurting people.
Yeah.
So, Randy, we're with you. We wouldn't do it
Mhm.
any differently, any other way.
Yeah, and we love you. We've actually partnered with you guys. And what have we done? Because you
Yeah.
mentioned this before, that Life Outreach and Convoy of Hope we
Oh,
supported you guys. I don't even know, so you're going to have to tell me.
yeah. So, whenever there's a major disaster, really anywhere in the world, we'll get a call from someone on your team that's just asking, "Hey, what are you doing? And what can we do together?"
Hmm.
And your organization has provided resources, financial resources. Your partners have been so generous, and it's like someone said, we can do so much more together than we can apart. And it's not an issue of being competitive.
Oh no.
It's about getting the job done. And you have demonstrated that time and again. And I just tip my hat to you today. Salute you. Thank you for all you've done.
Well, and thank you, because our model is not to go start things. We go find people that are faithfully serving the Lord and meeting needs, and we undergird them. That's been my parents' philosophy all along. And so we vet people heavily. So the fact that we have worked with Convoy of Hope for so many years, especially here in the U.S., that speaks to the integrity of your organization. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you so much. We're grateful.
How did Convoy of Hope even get started? Where did this come from?
Yeah, it really can be traced back to when I was 12 years of age. My father and mother were hit by a drunken driver, and my father was killed instantly. My mother was in the car, and she was seriously injured, would have health problems the rest of her life, many broken bones, internal injuries. And so, as a child, I experienced the shame of poverty because my parents didn't have insurance. The man who hit them didn't have insurance, and so our family was forced to survive on welfare. And so, Randy, I do know the shame of poverty, what it means to have a cupboard that's empty, to go to school with holes in your shoes, and to be teased by the other kids. But during those teenage years, I also experienced the power of kindness. And as a teenager, I was able to connect the dots between the kindness of people and the goodness of God. But when you're poor, you begin a quest not to be poor anymore. And for me, that certainly was my goal in my teen years as I entered my 20s. And I began writing books. I have a degree in journalism and a degree in Bible. And I was asked to write a book for some missionaries in Calcutta, India. And so I flew to Calcutta, and sure enough, my host said, there's someone we want you to interview for our book. And they took me over to meet Mother Teresa.
Oh, wow.
So here I am, my late 20s, and I'm interviewing Mother Teresa. And in the course of the interview, she just asked me, she said, "Young man, what are you doing to help the poor and the suffering?" Now, if Mother Teresa asks you that question, you don't want to lie to her, right? And so I told her the truth. I said, "I'm really not doing much of anything." And she said to me, "Everyone can do something."
Yeah.
Well, those words were haunting to me. And I came back to the States, and I was literally praying in my office one day, and I felt like God gave me an idea for a book, and to travel to 8 cities in America and to live in the streets for 3 days and 3 nights. And so with a hidden tape recorder, I walked the streets interviewing drug addicts and gang members, prostitutes, runaways,
Wow.
and those who are homeless. And God used that experience, Randy, to really just change my life and to bend my heart toward the poor. And so 26 years ago, I loaded up a pickup truck with $300 worth of groceries, and I went into a needy area in Northern California, and I passed out groceries. And that was the start of Convoy of Hope. And we went from a pickup truck to box trucks, U-Haul trailers, to a fleet of semis, warehouses around the world. But it started, with God had to do a work in my heart before He could do a work through my hands. And that's really how it got started.
That's amazing. We're talking to Hal Donaldson, president of Convoy of Hope. I'll show you the website. And yeah, there's one of the trucks right there. And I love, the marketing side of me absolutely loves the trucks
Thank you.
because it's recognizable and it just says, hey, we're out here, we're doing the work of Christ in the streets, and everybody can see it. Now, were you raised Catholic by chance?
I was not. In fact, my father was the pastor of a Pentecostal church
Hmm.
in California, and he was actually going to a church business meeting when he and my mother were hit by the drunk driver. So,
Ah,
I was raised in a Christian home, but I think just really to be transparent, I think it was really in my 20s when I really understood what it meant to follow Jesus, and I think it was during my 20s that I really moved from being a Pharisee to becoming a follower. And I
hmm.
began to really understand that to follow Jesus Christ really requires that we help other people and we reach out to them and we meet their needs. And, I did one thing that I really encourage other people to do. I read a chapter from the Gospels every day for a year and a half. And it was that process that really showed me that my life was not measuring up to Jesus's life.
Hmm.
And yeah, God he changed my heart.
Yeah.
He did.
I ask because it was Mother Teresa that kind of influenced you, which is interesting.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
and you work with all denominations. And when I look at denominations, I think the good of denominations is that they connect to different people in different ways.
Hmm.
I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. In college, I attended and got married in a United Methodist church. I went to Oral Roberts University, so I've been in Pentecostal churches plenty. My biological father is Irish Catholic. I've been in St. Patrick's in Dublin. I have an appreciation for the different expressions and connections with loving Christ and worshiping. And I understand how some people like the reverence of the stained glass windows and the
Sure.
choirs, whereas I'd rather not ever use a hymn book again. I
Yeah.
like the contemporary worship really connects with me. And so I think improperly functioning, denominations will serve as expressions of the same God to connect with the different personalities of people and draw them closer to God and work together to do like what you're doing. Tell people a little bit about what Convoy of Hope does in the United States, because this is a tough area, I know,
Yeah.
for a lot of Christian organizations, and I'll get into some of the reasons, but tell everybody what you do in the United States specifically.
Yeah. Well, whenever there's a major disaster, you can count on Convoy of Hope being on the ground, usually within 24 hours.
Hmm.
In the case of a hurricane, we actually are there on the ground waiting for the hurricane to hit, and our trucks will go in, fill with food and supplies, and they'll form a radius around where it's supposed to hit. And
Wow.
but disaster response in a very big way. But the community outreaches are really, as you were talking about, denominations. Um, Many different denominations come together, working together, befriending one another,
Hmm.
linking arms. And after that community outreach that weekend, so often they figure out things that they can do together
Hmm.
in a community. And I don't believe that any one denomination or church has a monopoly on compassion.
Hmm.
We all want to make our communities a better place to live, and we've certainly seen that all across the country. Every year we have 100,000 plus volunteers that come from many different denominations to work with us to touch their community.
Mm. And that's the way it should be. I absolutely love it. I think it's a picture of the body of Christ as it functions, the different parts working together to
Amen.
glorify God. Where are you right now? Where is Convoy of Hope?
Yeah, so when COVID-19 hit, we this. If you have a choice, when there's a disaster, you have a choice. You can circle the wagons and protect what you have, or you can be outward looking. And at Convoy, we said immediately, let's make a pledge that we're going to distribute 10 million meals. And so in a matter of weeks, we were able to accomplish that. I think we're well over 20 million meals that have been distributed
Wow.
to literally hundreds of churches across the country. In I think 48 states. we've been able to work with churches to distribute food and supplies. And it's been amazing to see churches turn their parking lots into compassion centers, distribution centers.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that all across the country. And I'm so proud of how the church is stepping up and making its presence known.
You know, I can only imagine how someone who does not know Jesus, maybe didn't grow up in the church, when they drive around a city and they see, okay, here's this kind of church and they're handing out food, and oh, and here's this kind of church and the cars are lined up around the block, and here's this kind of church. I think God can only smile at that kind of impression, because when you look and you see the needs of people being met at all these different churches, I don't see how that doesn't just glorify God. So appreciate.
I agree with you. I agree.
Appreciate you guys doing that. Let me ask you this, because you know, we talk on the air, on television, we focus on our international outreaches, but yet we do some things domestically. We have discovered, and I'm curious. I don't want to get too much in your business, but there is a mindset in the U.S. and I think in Canada as well. Maybe Judy, who's watching right now, can tell me. But there's a little bit of a mindset of, you know, I pay my taxes, the government has programs for this, the poor should be taken care of, the hungry should be fed already. Why do I need to give on top of that?
Yes. Well, there are so many people that are falling through the cracks. You know, it's easy to assume that safety net is helping everyone, but that's not fact. In fact, you know, as someone who grew up on food stamps, I can tell you that by the middle of the month, you know, we were out of food stamps and we had pennies left. We were having to survive on the kindness of neighbors and local churches. So I think it's a false assumption to believe that all the needs are being met because we're paying our taxes and we have so many social services. That's just not reality.
Yeah, no, it's not. And frankly, part of me wishes that we could put less money into government-run social services, and that would absolutely require the church to step up and meet the needs, because fundamentally I believe that kind of the outreach to the poor is primarily a function of the church, not the state.
That's right.
But anyway, some of that, I think the church has ceded control to the government, and we need to take it back actively.
Amen to that. I agree with that. Couldn't agree more. I do think though that you know, we have received calls from senators, from members of Congress, the White House. People are taking notice of the capacity that the church has in a time like COVID-19. When you have over 1,000 churches, for example, that are becoming distribution hubs, it has caught the attention of the national media, the local media, but also our national leaders. And I think it's a great moment for the church. I think the nation needs a revolution of kindness, and I think we're seeing that. But I think we're also, Randy, I think we're seeing a rebellion against hate. I think there's an anti-hate movement in America that the church needs to latch onto and be a part of. I think this is our moment. Let's demonstrate the love of Jesus to hurting people. And I think it's just a moment to really lift up the name of Jesus and to elevate the local church.
Absolutely. And you know what? That the anti-hate movement needs to be led by the church, because without God, the anti-hate movement just turns into another hate movement.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well said.
The food banks that you guys have, someone online's asking a question right now. Do you guys actually run the food banks, or do you support local food banks? How do you?
Yeah, so we receive requests from food banks, and typically this is the way it works, is because of our core value, our commitment to the local church. What we'll do is we will ask if a local church can be involved with that food bank or is involved with that food bank. And typically what we'll do is we'll connect it through the local church so that the church is the one that's giving it to the food bank, just to stay true to who we are. But there have been so many food banks across the country that have benefited from this outreach in the last 10 weeks, probably hundreds of them in different communities. We've received calls from mayors, food bank leaders, pastors asking if we could help. So
Yeah, that's great.
if there's something that if they see a need, please encourage them to reach out to us.
I'm curious how you balance the paying your staff appropriately and yourself appropriately without, frankly, getting greedy, because I know some of the secular charities have had scandals in the past where their CEOs and top leaders were making, I saw the numbers and went, wow, because I know what I make here, and I could definitely easily make more if I went somewhere else. How do you balance the honoring people and paying people what they're worth without going overboard?
Yeah, I think some of that stems from my journalism background, being a former reporter, journalism student. When we started the charity, we said, let's be so clean and have so much integrity that whether it's the IRS or a media person walks in the door, that we have nothing to hide. And we've tried to live that way for 26 years. And one of the ways that I think that organizations like yours and ours, we can live above board is being transparent. In our case, we publish our 990 form so people can go on and find out what I make. They can find where the resources are going. We make our audit available. I think transparency is critical more than ever for organizations like ours to be able to be transparent.
Yeah, we have an outside auditing firm that does our audit every year, and something's released. I'm sorry, I don't keep up with all that. But I know that we do maintain some transparency upon request. So if anybody's interested in that, they can ask us. But I also will say this, from the standpoint of Convoy of Hope, we really scrutinize the people that we support. And so, in some ways, the fact that we're still working with you after all these years, that's, from our standpoint, that says that we have decided that you guys are very financially responsible, or we wouldn't still be working with you. So you have our stamp of approval as well, for what it's worth.
That means a lot. Thank you so much. Great.
Tell people, I want to show people the website, and I'll remind you, we're talking to Hal Donaldson, president of Convoy of Hope. And there's the website right there. You can read all about them. That is convoyofhope.org, convoyofhope.org. Tell people how they can get involved and what's on the website where they can do something right now to help people.
Absolutely. On the website, it'll list a number of community outreaches across the country. And so we have some people that they actually will fly from one outreach to the other just to participate, because it's a very uplifting experience. On top of that, they are disaster response people that are trained. And so we have an army of volunteers that go through training and prepare them to respond to a disaster, typically in their region of the world. And then there are prayer requests that are certainly on that website where we would ask that you just join with us in prayer. And certainly there's opportunities to give as well.
I'm certain that you run into there are stories coming out of what you do. When you go into a place and you help people, I have no doubt that it changes people's lives. What's something, maybe just an anecdotal story from all your work in the field where you've seen your compassion, the compassion of the organization you're leading, really have an impact on somebody?
Yeah, there are so many stories, Randy, of an outreach coming to a city, and then a year later, people who were once in line the year before as recipients needing help. A year later, because of the ongoing outreach of local churches after the outreach, we see those same people that are now volunteers.
That's great.
And yeah, their lives have been transformed. I was at one outreach, and I literally stepped onto the property, and I saw this woman running toward me, and I'm gonna start crying just thinking about it. She just ran toward me, and she threw her arms around me, almost tackled me, and she just said, "You don't know where my life was a year ago. You don't know." And she was just bawling her eyes out, and she said, "But this is where I am today." Today, and she was wearing her Convoy of Hope t-shirt. Today, I'm a volunteer. My life is completely turned around. I'm no longer using drugs. I've got a good paying job. I'm taking care of my family. And, we've had so many experiences like that internationally. I know you have. So many
Yeah.
stories of children whose lives have been transformed through the feeding programs and the discipleship programs. And now they're in college, becoming doctors and lawyers, and many stories like that, lives transformed.
Absolutely, and but it kind of tell people how when we move beyond our own problems, our own situation, as difficult as it may be, and not to downplay that at all, but when we start to focus on helping the needs of others, it's interesting how our own needs seem to get met.
That's right. That's right. And it's not always the big things. It's the little things. I know as a teenager, Randy, not having very much, I'll never forget the woman who saw I had holes in my tennis shoes. And after church, she asked my mom if she could take me to a shoe store.
Mm.
And at the time, hard to believe now, but at the time, Kinney's shoes had 3 pairs of shoes that they offered. One for $2.99, one for $3.99, one for $4.99. And all I'd ever worn was the $2.99 pair. But that day I walked into that Kinney shoe store and I made a beeline to the $2.99 pair. And she said, "No, today you're going to get the best they have."
Mm-hmm.
And she bought a pair for $4.99 for me. And oh, wow, times have changed, right? I mean,
yeah.
but I've never forgotten that.
Now the $4.99 has no period in the middle of it on the tennis shoes.
That's right. That's the cost of laces these days. But I've never forgotten that. And it's the little acts of kindness that means so much to people who are hurting.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, Hal Donaldson, our president of Convoy of Hope, appreciate what you do. Last thing, I want you to address anyone who's thinking, "Boy, that's nice. That's great what they do. I'm glad somebody out there's doing it." What do you say to them to get them involved?
Yeah, I really encourage people to connect through their local church. A lot of times churches want to do something in their community, but they don't have the workers who have a passion. And so the first place to start is in your local church and asking if you can volunteer, if you can start something, if you can be a part of something. And I like to tell people, Randy, it's when we started with that one pickup truck, I had no idea where it would go. I'm glad God didn't show me what he had in mind, because it would have freaked me out, right? But acts of kindness, you have no idea what God will do. Vision is incremental. God will show you one thing, you're obedient to that one thing, and then he'll show you the next, and then the next. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea where it will lead. But I encourage people, start with your local church and start with your own neighborhood. Yeah. Do the next kind thing Jesus puts in front of you.
Yeah, sounds like being faithful in the little things, and then Lord will just give you more and more. And that's
amen to that.
Right out of Scripture and right out of life. How, man, it's a pleasure meeting you. We've never met. I've never had the chance to sit down and talk with you, and it has been a real joy. Thank you, sir.
Hey, for me too. Thanks so much for inviting me to come on. I just love what you guys do. Thanks so much.
Well, and if there's something, we just know there will be something in the future where we need to activate a lot of people. You give us a call and we can sit down on this right here and let people know what's going on, and get some people involved. So that's close to my heart. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Randy, so much.
And for all you guys watching, don't you love Hal's heart? And I just, the humility, when you ask him, what can people do? He pointed you to the local church. See, that's someone who's a team player, and they're on Team Jesus. Because when we all do our part, we work together, different parts, one body, man, we can move mountains. So I just pray you'll consider what you can do, whether it's supporting Life Outreach, supporting Convoy of Hope, going to your local church, supporting them. Just be a part of what God designed on this earth, His kingdom right here, right now, to change people's lives with the gospel. So I'm done preaching. It's close to my heart. Hope you guys will do something. You can always go to lifetoday.org/live. and support our ongoing outreaches. But again, convoyofhope.org. I'll show you their website one more time, because today is a Convoy of Hope Day. And just do something. Get involved. Let's put some feet to our faith, and let's be the body of Christ. See you again next time right here on Life Today Live.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my happy privilege and pleasure to present the man that God has raised up with a message for your deliverance.
There is no distance in prayer. You don't have to go anywhere or be in any specific place. It is the believing of the heart